They're the next generation living off the state.
You're a very naughty boy. I'll get a child benefit, tax credit, housing benefit. I've got a better life here than my country. I'm never gonna go back to Slovakia, never. Yeah.
I want to break free. I want to break free. I want to break free from your lies. You're so self-satisfied. I don't need you. I've got to break free. God knows I want to break free.
I'm sure you've all been enjoying being entertained by Channel 4's highly scripted fantasy picture of Sheffield, one of everything smelling of roses, literally singing and dancing and skipping in the streets as the viewers are led down the proverbial garden path that is mostly ignorant of the crisis-inducing consequences of what is 15 years of out-of-control immigration, courtesy of the last Labour government that had the baldrick-esk cunning plan to import millions of new Labour voters from Eastern Europe so as to bolster their election chances. Ignorance of all of the social consequences that cities such as Sheffield and Rotherham have been facing in ever-expanding waves, such as the frozen social housing rental market, a paralysis in healthcare and child services, where even GP referrals result in indefinite waiting lists where preliminary assessments are the norm, so as to delay actual diagnosis, treatments and plans of action. And then there is the crisis in school places. A school application fraud has become rampant as desperate parents try to escape the consequences of out-of-control immigration from within their localities, which has prompted panic measures from the council to expand and probably wreck Sheffield's best schools, just as they had with Abbeydale Grange during the 1990s. A crisis that is literally set to explode starting 1st of March on release of school place allocations, where even many in catchment area children will likely be denied a place at their local schools. Therefore, this video will act as an antidote to Channel 4's scripted trips from London to Sheffield that will tell you the reality of Sheffield and Rotherham.
My town is from Gypsy.
Jon's now leaving all this behind, and pretty soon he'll be in London.
I know it's very, very easy to take benefit in England. She's given me home free, yeah? She's given me money free, she's given me everything. Everything here for my family. I'm gonna take benefit for England, yeah? England is one country with much money. I need maybe 4,000 pounds for my family. And I think this money I can make in 1 year, maybe 2.
In Romania, it's unlikely that Jon could make 40 grand in 20 years, let alone 2. 1,300 miles away in Rotherham, South Yorkshire, there's a huge gypsy family that's already getting cash from the welfare state. Meet Katarina Cicerova and her husband, Peter. They're Slovakian Roma who came to the UK 7 years ago. And their clan is much bigger than most families on benefits.
Grandkids, we have 11, very nice.
And children?
11.
We are a big family, massive, 22 people together.
Big family, Slovakia people.
Katarina lives with 4 of her kids and an out-of-work husband. They get about 24 grand a year in benefits, 6 times the handouts they'd get in Slovakia. All but one of her grown-up kids and their families live off benefits too.
Tu nám dobre do Anglicku, tu sebe žijeme, tu máme všetko, čo chceme, ale toto sme nemali na Slovensko, čo tu na. Nevierka stalo Kriston Manca. Život, nie? Zariadenie. Byty sme nemali na Slovensko, lebo nemali sme tam elektriky, nemali sme tam radiátory, tak nemali sme nič, no, nič.
In the 7 years she's been here, Katerina's worked for just 1 month. Husband Peter's had various jobs, but nothing for 2 years.
My country no have job, no food. Nothing, no. I'm not going back. No, never. I'm like here, England. England give me a house, give me doctor, give school, benefit. England good. Thank you so much, Immigrant.
More problems in the Page Hall area of Sheffield. The area made national headlines when the former Home Secretary, David Blunkett, highlighted tensions following an influx of Roma Slovak migrants.
A year ago, Sheffield Council introduced, a scheme which asked landlords to stop their houses becoming overcrowded and to prevent their tenants fly tipping or playing loud music. But some residents say it's done nothing to improve the area. Mark Ansell has this.
I've lived here about 12 years. I've never seen a rat until last, probably 8 to 10 months. I've got 2 traps. I've killed 39 in them, and my dog's killed 2.
Sean Outram says he'd move out of Page Hall if he could afford to. Since the Roma Slovak population started moving in 10 years ago, there's been growing tensions.
It's hell at times.
Why?
Just because of filth, the noise.
Hundreds of Roma Slovak families now live in this small community, renting terraced housing from private landlords. Much of it is overcrowded and in a poor condition, leading to problems like rats. A year ago, the council took action, introducing a licensing scheme where landlords pay to register their properties. And residents say it's not worked. There's still a big problem of antisocial behaviour. Kirsty Green is moving out of Page Hall after a year here.
The house is a disgrace, there's black mould everywhere. Still single glazed windows, we're still like back in olden days with windows. Doors don't fit frames, so it's always drafted. But it's mainly the noise from the neighbours next door, because we're about 50 people living there.
The Roma Slovak community didn't want to come on camera, but 2 community workers have told me the area is slowly improving. Meanwhile, landlords feel they've been made scapegoats by the council.
I think everybody has some responsibility. The landlords have responsibility, the community has responsibilities, and also the statutory organisations. But to place a burden on just one area, I think is wrong.
But the council insists it's a 5-year scheme that will take time to work properly.
There are all sorts of people working in Page Hall to make it better. And selective licensing is just one of the things that we're doing in Page Hall. But we are definitely starting to tackle the roots, the causes of the problems.
In Rotherham, 43-year-old Slovakian gypsy Katerina Cicerova has already made a big move, even if she's just crossed a few streets to her new home. Now she's settling into a much swankier pad with her husband and 4 of their 11 kids. And it's all paid for by benefits.
They're happy they got this house, better than other one, you know, because that other house was too mess, you know. So it's better now, they're happy they got this house.
In Slovakia, Katerina and Peter would get 95 quid a month towards housing. Here they get 540, and the promise of improvements.
Next month, change for new boiler, my landlord, new gas machine. My landlord tell me 3 weeks, after 2-3 weeks, bring me new carpet. England is good, you know, my country now good. No jobs, no anything. No. Too many people Slovakia coming England because my country no have job. I'm go from my country, I'm no have house. No house. No have nothing. Here I'm have house. I'm England happy, very happy. Yeah.
So Peter's grateful for a house provided by the British taxpayer, even if it's not quite up to Slovakian standards.
my country strong house, very strong. England no, because England, I don't know why. Come and look, I'll show you. Look, it's not good. I'm pushing after that. My country no, broke for that, everything. I need money, I don't have any money with me. I hope very quickly to take my benefit, yeah, for me and for my family and my friends the same. Because benefits, she's give me home free, she's give me water free, rent, everything, no pay, nothing. I plan to stay in UK. How much is gonna be benefit? If it's 10 years, 10 years. If it's 13 years, 30 years. If it's 2 years, what can I do? 2 years.
While the Romanian newcomers are just starting to think about benefits, in Rotherham, the welfare state's a way of life for Slovakian Roma Katerina. He's back. He knows he can get child benefits for his kids, even if they're still in Romania.
Because benefits I take very easy. I know my children, my baby is not here. I have papyrus for all my family, and my friends is gonna help me and take benefit, but my family in Romania. I know it's very easy.
And it'll all go towards Jon's target of £40,000.
She's gonna give me house, yeah. She's gonna give me money, everything for free, and then I'll be very, very happy.
In Rotherham, life isn't nearly so cramped for Slovakian Roma Petra. Taxpayers are providing £650 a month in benefits for the single mum and her son Peter to live 2 streets away from his grandma.
This is my house, and I live here with my little son about 12 months.
Petra's part of the Cicerova clan. She's the middle one of 11 children. And Peter is one of the youngest of 11 grandchildren. They're the next generation living off the state.
You're a very naughty boy. I'll get child benefit, tax credit, housing benefit. I've got a better life here than my country. I'm never gonna go back to Slovakia, never.
Mr. Speaker, may I share my right honourable friend's disappointment that despite all his hard work, the European Union is forcing him to abandon our manifesto pledge to change the benefit system for migrants. And will my right honourable friend confirm that, sadly, the only way in which we're going to be able to regain control over our own borders is by leaving the European Union?
Well, I have great respect for my right honourable friend, but we don't agree on this one. We said in our manifesto that anyone coming to Britain from the EU searching for work should not get unemployment benefit.
Britain's Prime Minister David Cameron emerged Tuesday waving a piece of paper Chamberlain style of a draft agreement that followed several months of negotiations that had the PM running around Europe begging the likes of Donald Tusk, a former Polish Prime Minister, and former Eastern Bloc nations for some return of sovereignty. A piece of paper that is heavy on printed pages but light on anything that even comes close to matching the Conservative manifesto pledges of a series of red lines ahead of a promised EU in-out referendum. Unfortunately for David Cameron, despite his best efforts at putting up a propaganda smokescreen of success, the draft agreement fails to deliver anything of substance, falling far short of all of David Cameron's so-called red line pledges. At the top of the list was a ban on both in-work and out-of-work benefits for 4 years, benefits such as tax credits and housing benefit that currently amount to a transfer payment from the UK taxpayer to Eastern Europe of an estimated £15 billion per year. So what was the outcome? No benefits ban. Instead, the EU will decide tapering of benefits, if any, which is pending approval from individual member states, some of whom may or may not agree to any tapering. Then there's child benefit. David Cameron proposed that the UK would no longer pay for children of migrants living abroad. What's the outcome? No ban. Child benefit will continue with some tweaking on the rate of payments in line with what's paid locally, subject to heavy recipient nations such as Poland and Hungary agreeing to these reductions in UK taxpayer child benefit subsidy. David Cameron had been promising that the UK will be able to control its borders, choosing who to let in. So what's the outcome? No control over UK borders. Instead, there will be a temporary emergency brake on benefits where a member state is experiencing a migrant crisis. However, whether this brake can be triggered will be at the sole discretion of the European Union and not the member state. Net effect, zero impact on the continuing out of control immigration. So, whilst the Eastern European states balk at even letting a couple of thousand Syrian refugees into their economically and socially backward states, in the meantime have been busy sending 500,000 economic migrants per year to profit from Britain's in-work benefits and welfare state. For instance, recent ONS data continue to show a record-busting net migration figure of 336k in the year to June 2015, an increase in the rate of migration of 32% on 2014, which literally translates into a daily flood of a net 1,000 people turning up on Britain's shores and demanding housing, education, school places, jobs, with benefits such as tax credits, health and social services that have been buckling and breaking and ultimately freezing, as the social housing has in many cities already for several years in the wake of a 15-year-long trend of out of control immigration. The key points that stand out from the ONS data release is the doubling in Romanian and Bulgarian immigrants over the preceding year, something that is being felt hard in cities right across the UK, such as in Sheffield, that is facing a huge crisis in housing, school places and social cohesion that is consuming local council budgets like a black hole to deal with the consequences of. Another key point that the mainstream press has apparently missed is the fact that the net figures mask the reality of what the gross immigration figure of 636k implies, which effectively means that the impact of immigration is double that which the headline figure of 336k suggests, i.e. in terms of social cohesion and housing and services for those pockets of the UK most affected by immigration, such as the southeast and inner cities. Britain, Europe are not just dealing with the likes of the Syrian civil war that produced over 4 million refugees. Most of them were determined to find their way to the likes of Germany and Britain, but also the fact that Africa continues to undergo a population explosion, where the continent's population looks set to double once more over the next 30 years from 1.1 billion to 2.2 billion, that will result in a migration exodus that will be exponentially greater than that which is taking place today, which implies a trend for ever increasing number of economic migrants from Africa alone, let alone the continuing increasing flows from the more prosperous Asia, i.e. China, and elsewhere, who can afford to pay people smugglers for transportation to a new life in the UK. Therefore, whilst today the mainstream broadcast press crisis coverage of immigration is focused on the camps of tens of thousands of migrants on Europe's southern borders, and even some 5,000 near the port of Calais, however, Britain should prepare itself for what the trend implies looks inevitable, that within the next few years already buckling and highly stressed state services will break under the weight of numbers, in response to which the government will be forced to introduce unprecedented measures such as cordoning off pockets of southern England into self-contained migrant camps of first in the tens of thousands and ultimately numbering in the hundreds of thousands, in an attempt to contain the consequences of the immigration catastrophe that is implied as the consequence of 10 million immigrants entering the UK, net 5 million over the next 10 years. That will be in addition to natural population growth of approximately 4 million. In fact, 10 years from now, the UK will likely have whole villages and even towns cordoned off as permanent migrant camps in an attempt to contain the catastrophe. And lastly, the deal was supposed to involve treaty change so as to make the deal legally binding on all member states in perpetuity. Instead, there will be no treaty change, which means even if today's Eastern European governments agree to the UK-EU deal, i.e. in the run-up to the UK referendum, however, they can afterwards change their policy towards the UK and vote for Britain to scrap today's deal in its entirety, which is probably what the Eastern European states have in mind. So the bottom line is that this is Britain's last chance to gain freedom from the emerging European superstate. Because what most pundits fail to recognise or lack experience of is trend and momentum, both of which for the past 40 years have been moving in one direction, that for the emergence of a highly centralised European superstate that the financial crisis and subsequent economic depression of Southern Europe is accelerating the trend towards. So whilst it is too late for the Eurozone members, who for better or worse are locked into a death embrace that has all but nullified democracy for most of the Eurozone states, as the elections in Greece, Spain and Italy have clearly demonstrated the lack for even radical governments such as Syriza to do anything other than obey their German paymasters who control the euro currency and can within a couple of weeks bring fellow Eurozone members to the brink of collapse, as was repeatedly demonstrated by Greece last year. Thus for Britain, the saving grace of not being in the Eurozone offers the UK a unique final opportunity to make the choice of for either freedom or become another satellite state revolving around a German centre that will increasingly dictate terms and conditions. Therefore, given that there would probably not be another referendum for at least 20 years, then this really is Britain's very last chance. There won't be another opportunity, because with each passing year the price for a Brexit increases, and we are not that far off the point of no return when an exit would result in probable economic collapse, much as the situation of the Eurozone members has been in since they signed up to scrap their currencies and join the euro. Of course, both the Leave and Remain camps put out a lot of propaganda and spin on the others' consequences. For instance, Leave, it's a case of everything smelling of roses in Britain that has been freed from an increasing European bureaucracy and interference that would be in full control of Britain's borders, whilst the Remain camp paints a picture of fear, of economic and financial catastrophe, coupled with punitive terms for exit that would seek to punish Britain for daring to exit the European Union. So much for so-called European unity built on common purpose and friendship. Instead, the European Union is increasingly a club of fear and paralysis. However, the truth is that a Brexit will be economically painful, despite all of the benefits of being outside of the EU. the cost of Brexit will be anything from 2% of GDP to as high as 5% of GDP. That's if the Eurozone is determined to make an example of Britain, to act as a warning to others by raising punitive tariffs on trade. However, remember that attaining freedom always carries a price, in which respect even the worst case scenario for a 5% loss of GDP in the grand scheme of things does not compare against the infinitely greater price the people of Britain paid for their freedom in both past world wars. And so it is now this generation's turn to pay a price for the freedom of future generations. What the people of Britain need to fully understand is that this really is their very last chance for freedom. Though given the backtracking of Schengen currently underway and Greece, well, still bankrupt, then the European project could yet unravel all on its own, even before a Brexit referendum is held. In fact, a Brexit would likely be the nail in the European coffin that would literally start to disintegrate, and it could all unravel quite quickly, as I've been warning of for some time now. Do ensure you're subscribed to this YouTube channel